Though we disagree on points of policy and politics in this chamber, which is right and proper in a parliamentary democracy, when it comes to upholding the values and principles of modern democracy, the Scottish Parliament stands behind Ukraine, resolute and unwavering. Regardless of our political views, everyone in this chamber understands that democracy is hard fought for and must never be taken for granted. Democracy must be cherished, defended and enhanced. This is the lesson of the 20th century. This is the lesson the people of Ukraine live and struggle and fight to teach us every day. The courage demonstrated by President Zelensky and by all Ukrainians since the first day of Russia's illegal full-scale invasion reaches far beyond the protection and the preservation of their own homeland. Ukrainians struggle and fight for all of Europe and for the protection and the preservation of all democratic nations. It is a struggle for the rule of law, for human rights, and to uphold the international norms which once ensured Europe knew guaranteed peace. The Ukrainian people are fighting for their homeland, for their future, but also for our future too. 3 years ago, Russia expected to flatten Ukrainian resistance within days. But despite a war that has caused years of unnecessary misery in a peaceful, sovereign and democratic nation, the power of the fight for democracy and all its freedoms has given the Ukrainian people their purpose as well as their most potent advantage. Ukrainian people are fighting to defend her independence, her territorial integrity and her security in the face of appalling, unprovoked violence. Violence which has destroyed lives, separated families, wounded hundreds of thousands of citizens and razed cities to the ground. And yet, President Zelensky has not wavered in strength or dignity. His people have not laid down arms. Russia has not succeeded in reaching its war aims, despite sending hundreds of thousands of troops to their deaths or to be wounded on the front lines. But now, as a result of all this unnecessary carnage, millions of Ukrainian children have never known peace, while Western democracy has never been under such relentless attack from within. Misinformation, propaganda, malicious interpretations of history, arrogance, ignorance, prejudice and hate are being used to divide us. Only yesterday, after Russia launched a drone attack on a civilian building in Kharkiv, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "We see the collective West has started to become less collective. A fragmentation of the collective West has begun." That is precisely what Russia wants its people and the world to believe. That is precisely what Putin wants us to believe. We must be ever vigilant to the threat of disinformation, which takes the shape of the Kremlin's talking points. Russia was not provoked to invade Ukraine in 2014 or in 2022. No credence should be given to deflection tactics blaming NATO for expansion for Russian aggression. Each and every country in NATO is a democracy that has made its own sovereign choice to become a member, and many of the countries on NATO's eastern flank have recent experience of living under Russian threat. The strong international solidarity and dedication to achieving peace in Ukraine was evident for all to see at the Security Summit in London this weekend. And the vast majority of European leaders have only one message: their unreserved condemnation of illegal Russian aggression. Therefore, Ukraine's allies should all have one aim and one aim only: to support Ukraine's independence, her territorial integrity and her security. So I wholeheartedly welcome the Prime Minister's Coalition of the Willing initiative to provide Ukraine with security guarantees after a ceasefire agreement, as well as the £1.6 billion missile deal for Ukraine. I also accept the case for peacekeeping forces to avert further conflict, subject to proper scrutiny and a vote in the House of Commons. And I understand the delicate balance of diplomacy the Prime Minister and the United Kingdom Government must navigate in this matter. So I want to make clear my commitment and the commitment of my government to a united front, my commitment to do all that I can to support Ukraine to succeed. But I am sure, like the many European leaders who expressed their solidarity with President Zelensky this weekend, I am very disturbed by how his meeting with the US President and Vice President played out last week. I agree with President Zelensky's statement that Ukraine wants its partners to remember who the aggressor is in this war. And we must see unwavering unity across this political spectrum in full solidarity with Ukraine on this essential point. The events at the Oval Office meeting with President Zelensky and the announcement made this morning of a pause in US military aid to Ukraine can only run the risk of emboldening Russia, the aggressor. As I said this weekend, if this were to remain the posture of the US government, a second state visit for the US President Donald Trump becomes unthinkable. I know there are people in this chamber and across this country who will disagree, who will say that we should not contemplate this stance, or who will say that President Trump should not be invited under any circumstances. I understand and respect those points of view, but I cannot share them. Right now, today, as we stand here, men, women and children in Ukraine are putting their lives and their freedom on the line to defend their country and all of our democracies. We say we support them, and we do, but that means being willing to do things that are hard, things that we would rather not do. So if a state visit could help solidify US support for Ukraine, if that is part of what supporting Ukraine means in practice, then it is a possibility. For that to be true, however, the US would have to sustain the steadfast support of Ukraine, her independence and her territorial integrity. As we think through all these issues, the important questions are the hard-headed, clear-eyed consideration of what is best for Ukraine and European security today. For my government, that means standing steadfast behind Ukraine and alongside the United Kingdom government and our European allies, and that is exactly what Scotland will do. My hope is that US and European leaders can once again find a way to speak with one voice on the matter of this conflict. There are no grey areas when one country chooses to send troops and tanks into the peaceful territory of another. My government supports the approach of the United Kingdom government in committing to secure international solidarity in support of Ukraine's long-term future. We welcome the 100-year partnership recently agreed by the United Kingdom and Ukraine, and Scotland will play our part, whether as part of the United Kingdom or as an independent nation in the future, in helping to deliver it. I also welcome the approach of the Prime Minister and the proposed four-point plan to end the war and defend Ukraine from Russia. As I have already stated, Scotland accepts the case for the deployment of any peacekeeping forces to avert future conflict, subject to scrutiny and a vote by MPs in the House of Commons. And my government remains committed to supporting Ukraine until a just peace is secured, not a peace at any cost, which strips Ukraine of her sovereignty in wartime. So let me once again make clear, there can be no truly sincere or constructive peace talks about the future of Ukraine without Ukraine present at the negotiating table. And securing the future of Ukraine is utterly vital to securing the peace we have enjoyed in Europe for so long. Ukraine's future and her fate is our future and our fate. So we must aspire to be as courageous as the people of Ukraine and stand by them always in their hour of need. And we must maintain unity with our partners across Europe and the Western world, unity like that demonstrated in London this weekend and at Edinburgh Castle last week. Because events in Ukraine are having, and will continue to have, a direct negative impact on Scotland's economy, security and society. Presiding Officer, Scotland's approach internationally will continue to be led and guided by our compassion for Ukraine. I know this Chamber will continue to work together on these matters and to put any differences aside in respect of our common efforts to uphold justice. Now 25 years into the life of this modern Parliament, Scotland chooses to stand for democracy, for human rights and the rule of law at home, and among our courageous allies like Ukraine. These are the underpinnings of democracy, of prosperity and of every freedom democracy provides. This is the solidarity among allies that will deliver Ukraine from Russia's barbaric aggression, while protecting her heritage, her culture and her social and economic future. We have been honoured across Scotland that thousands of Ukrainians have made their home in our country. My message to people from Ukraine living here in Scotland is that you are and always will be very welcome here. Providing support and sanctuary for Ukrainian people displaced by Russia's brutal war continues to be a priority for the Scottish Government. I want Ukrainians everywhere to know that they also have Scotland's fullest support. I know many of them will be deeply concerned by what has unfolded over the last few days. It is for those brave Ukrainians and every person protected by democracy that Scotland will never be silent. Here in Scotland, we will forever stand with Ukraine.